I'm a video editor who has helped channels generate over 70 million views in YouTube alone. And in this video, I'm going to be unveiling my 7 key components to engaging storytelling through video editing. And not only that, but I will also be sharing the #1 mistake I see not only beginners, but professional video editors make on a daily basis. So stay tuned for that. Now, what this is not is another video just telling you to make more cuts or use more B-roll. No, this is a masterclass into the psychology of why people watch. I guarantee you that there's going to be at least one thing in this video that you will be able to take away and use in your own content. So grab a notebook and listen up. But before we can even touch editing, we need to address the fact that if your idea, your raw footage, your script is bad, then the best your editing can possibly do for your project is make it less bad. And this is actually bringing us into point #1, which is that your video editing can only be as good as your source material. You can think of it like a house, your raw footage being your foundation. Now, if your foundation is shaky or not up to par, whatever you add on top of that is just being built on a weak structure. So what you have to do is make sure that that structure is strong enough to where your video editing can propel everything that you have done before that. And sure, that may not be something that your viewers will be able to consciously communicate to themselves, but I assure you they will feel it, and it will have an effect on how your video is perceived. So you need to put as much effort you put into the post-production into the production as well. Now, does this mean that you need a $10,000 camera and a whole production crew behind it? No, not at all. And honestly, many creators often thrive without these things. But if I had to tell you to focus on one thing, it would have to be audio. Because if you don't have good audio, your video is basically more unwatchable than if you were to not have any of the other components. So I would prioritize clean audio over anything else. If you don't have the best mic, you actually can go into Premiere Pro and use the enhanced sound feature. It uses AI to enhance your microphone. So for example, this is what my default microphone sounds like. And this is what it sounds like when you add the filter on it. Pretty crazy, right? The second key to effective editing has to do with something called the priming effect. For this, let's take a look at what the best of the best does to start off their videos.
I'm about to show you what a $500,000 experience looks like.
I'm about to show you what a $500,000 experience looks like. Did you see what he did there? It's subtle, but it's a beautiful representation of the deeper forces at play that motivate us when we're watching videos. In this case, it's the priming effect. And the priming effect is essentially the idea that whatever we first see, hear, or feel sets us up to change how we perceive what comes after that. The idea is expectations are being set. A promise is being made. In our brains, when we hear that promise, we begin to perceive the things that come after that promise differently to check if that is going to be confirmed or denied. And now what Mr. Beast is doing suddenly becomes a lot more clear. Let's watch that again.
I'm about to show you what a $500,000 experience looks like. I promise this is going to blow your mind.
He is literally promising us word for word that he is going to blow our minds. So our brains are primed to be looking out for that. Not only that, but the key is that his videos actually support that. He's meeting or exceeding those expectations to where we now trust him to deliver on that promise. So we keep coming back and pay attention to the music choice, the sound effects. Those whooshes are artificially added in to emphasize the sheer scale of how far that drone had to go back to show us what Jimmy is standing on. It is all intentional, I guarantee you. And it's all to prime our brains into feeling that expectation to where we're looking to resolve it as well. Now, does this mean that your videos have to be super extravagant or over the top to effectively use the priming effect? Well, let's look at this guy.
Listen to me very closely because you have 2 choices when it comes to AI. You can either adopt it or you can get left behind. But here's the problem.
These creators are almost complete opposites, except for the fact that they both utilize the same psychological principles. For example, let's look at the font choice. For both of these creators, they want to convey something different to their audiences, and their font supports that, right? Mr. Beast is over the top. He's always exceeding expectations. He's bold. Whereas Iman might want to portray more simplicity and objectivity and class because he's there to educate, right? Both Iman and Mr. Beast understand that we are coming to their videos for a reason. And because of this, they use indirect and direct communication tactics to show us that we are in the right place and that we can rest assured that we are going to get what we came for. It's really all it is. And this is why it's so important to know your audience. And coincidentally, that's actually the 3rd key to this list. And with this, I got a question for you. What would you say the attention span of a human being is? Some people might say 2 seconds, 5 seconds. People say nowadays that we have the attention span of goldfish. And maybe that is true for some people, but the truth is that it depends. Listen, I know that's not the sexy answer, but it's true. I mean, how is it that we can go from discerning the value of a TikTok in less than a second to, in that same time period, be glued to a documentary that's 2-3 hours long? Well, it's because we go to those different platforms for different reasons. We go to those styles of entertainment for different reasons. Our attention spans vary pretty dramatically based on what story we are trying to pursue. And this is exactly why some YouTubers get by with very minimal editing and other YouTubers focus on highly stimulating content. It's because these people understand that their audiences come to their videos for something specific. And a great way to begin researching this is to simply ask yourself, when do you start tuning out of videos? Why are you tuning out of those videos? What videos keep you the most engaged? And what do all those videos have in common with each other? And the reason why this is so effective is because you are most likely a subject and target of the niche that you're trying to target yourself, right? So asking yourself these questions can be a great start to understanding where other people stand as well. And once you have that understanding, now, well, you can use that on your platform to better engage with your viewers. But more on that later. Let's stop for a second. What do all of these videos have in common?
The internet thinks I'm wrong. Really wrong. And apparently, it's a big deal.
What got you here won't get you there. So I needed to learn something totally different. And what he taught me allowed me to double my business in 1 year.
Out of these 100 pairs of identical twins, only one is walking away with this $250,000.
Even if you can't articulate it, you probably know the feeling. It's because all of them are creating problems. Problems in our minds that we cannot help but need to resolve. Do you know how powerful that force is in our minds? This is because our brains are wired to remember incomplete information significantly at a higher level than completed information. For example, the reason why Mr. Beast always sets these crazy goals is because our brains basically cannot single-handedly compute how that could possibly even be completed. And Mr. Beast's videos are so far-fetched that the only way that we can resolve that issue in our minds is to just continue watching the video. So Mr. Beast has monopolized answers to problems. But with this, it's also important to drop clues and hints and reminders in your video that there is something that they are waiting for and there is a problem that is yet to be solved. For example, the big mistake that I mentioned in the beginning of the video is coming up very, very soon. So step 1, set up a problem massive enough to where they couldn't go anywhere else for that answer. 2, make droplets of clues and reminders that they are in the right place. And 3, give them what they want. If you don't deliver on your promises, you lose so much trust from that, and it is so hard to get that back. And in this, point number 5 is to control the perception of time. Have you ever noticed how creators use editing to manipulate the passage of time in their videos? Some creators that I've edited for in the past have sent me 7+ hours of raw footage that I have to cut down to 8 to 12 minutes of a finished product. So that means that I have to be incredibly meticulous with what I include and what I don't include. But not only that, I needed to be consciously focusing on understanding how the viewer is perceiving each piece of information in relation to everything else. Pacing is one of the most underlooked yet important aspects of effective video editing, and the key is simply timing. Understanding when shots need to be sped up, but also when you need to let some shots breathe. So if your idea of pacing is to just make things constantly stimulating, constantly fast, or even constantly slow, I would advise you to reconsider that, because pacing is so much more than that. It's about creating a flow, a rhythm, peaks and valleys that your viewer can go through as they're experiencing what you have built for them. Because in reality, life has its peaks and valleys, and you want your viewer to be in your video as if they're in real life, because you want your viewers to feel at home. And it's funny because you can literally use pacing to tell your viewer how to feel, and they will follow you. As a matter of fact, I'm doing all of these things right now. And if you don't believe me, rewind the video back maybe 30-40 seconds and see how I'm using these elements to keep you engaged. And this actually moves us into the key mistake, which is number 6. Here's the truth. Viewers are smarter than you think. In fact, a common mistake that I see even intermediate and advanced level editors make is they spoon feed information to their viewers constantly. And listen, while there are times where clarification and communication are beneficial, a lot of times it's just unnecessary and it harms the viewing experience, and I'll explain why. I'm assuming there have been times where you've watched a video where an idea or premise is repeated 5-10 times over, or there's an arrow pointing to something that is clearly the subject of attention, or there are captions all over the screen trying to spell out what the person is saying when it's very clear what they're saying, and the information isn't important, so the captions really have no place being there. You're sitting there and subconsciously what you're feeling is you're feeling patronized. And the reason why this can be so detrimental is because we as humans, we crave freedom. We crave the autonomy of decision making. So when someone comes across and tells us we are not smart enough to understand and think critically for ourselves, we rebel against that. When there's an editor that tries to spoon feed us every little crumb, it subconsciously sends us the message, subtly, that he does not trust us to understand the material on our own. He is communicating to us that we need him to understand what is happening. So to fight back against that, we either click away or we feel turned off, and we don't know why. And so the viewer to editor relationship is about trust, and trust comes from understanding. So the best editors understand their viewer, like we were talking about earlier. They understand what information they might need a little more context on, but they also understand what information most people can probably discern for themselves. And when we feel like the video trusts us to understand the information on our own, we feel like we are a part of the experience. And the reason why a lot of even higher level editors do this is because, one, they are either not very confident in their abilities, and they compensate for that by over explaining and spoon feeding the viewer information because they are scared that we will not understand, or they are a little too confident in their abilities and they do everything they can to prove to the viewer that they know what they're doing. They know how to communicate a story visually, but oftentimes that does not go as planned. But for you, develop a habit of asking yourself, if I was watching this video for the first time, would I need this? Would I need this to understand what is happening? And if the answer is a resounding no, I would highly advise you to stay away from that and leave it out of the video because it's not necessary. It's important to give your viewers room to feel smart. And that's exactly why number 7 on this list is that less is more. Many beginner editors make the mistake of simply adding more effects, more transitions, more sound effects, more volume, blah, more. The issue with this is that we as viewers can be overstimulated. And when we're overstimulated, it means that there are too many things competing for our attention on the screen at once, and we get what I like to call psychological fatigue. We shut out. And again, this goes back to number 6. Our viewers do not need to be spoon-fed how good something is. In fact, in my opinion, the greatest editors not only know what to add, but they know what to subtract as well. That is true expertise. But a key component of a lot of this video is the idea of confidence. Confidence in your viewers, confidence in yourself to communicate what you need to communicate to your viewer, and confidence that that connection will be made. Because the less you need to be an effective storyteller, the more masterful you appear. So before you add that extra sound effect or motion graphic to your video, truly ask yourself, what does this do for the project? Does it enhance the story, or is it just white noise? On that note, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like, subscribe, and click right here for a video on the psychology of music.